In a lot of the numbers, Dee was usually on his left side and I was usually on his right side. So we always got to look at his faces when he would do a turn, and he would look at Dee and go, and then he would do another turn and then he'd go. So we were able to really, I don't know, for some reason, just by the fact that we loved him so much, we knew how to catch up or what to do.
Right.
You know, but all the dancers did. Whenever Peter made a mistake or anything, and all the dancers always knew, stay on course, he'll catch up to it.
In addition to that, when you assisted him, he'd hear one thing one day and he was so musical, he'd hear pa-dum-pum the next day, you know? And he'd hear pa-dum-pum the next day. And so you had to keep all these versions in your head, and when at one point you go, okay, Peter, what do you want? Do you want pa-dum-pum? Do you want pa-dum-pum-pum? Or do you want pa-dum-pum-pum? You know? And I would do it, and he'd go, did I do that? That stinks.
During Annie Warbucks, he rehearsed, there wasn't much dancing in it, but he did the number for the little girls to a rehearsal piano. And then he heard the orchestration and he said, what? What is that? What is that? And he redid the number. He heard music.
He was, yeah.
I mean,
the movement was the music.
And I think because he was so fast with his steps, there were a lot of people couldn't catch up to that. So that's why he kept we were all family because we could do it. Yeah. And he used us all the time. He was he was so loyal. It's just amazing. Bill, talk about you assisted him first, probably, right?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth. I did Jimmy and the Hallelujah Baby with him.
Many changes?
Yeah, a lot. And we were talking backstage that basically we all have the same story. We went to watch Ed Sullivan's show, and when I got Seventh Heaven, my very first show that I did, it was for Peter, and I was absolutely amazed. I mean, we had all these fabulous stars in it and everything. But we did a number that was in a sewer. And I never really understood why we were dancing in the sewer. But the first day of rehearsal, he brought in 8x10 pictures of his wife doing gloves and hands and things with the eyes. And I remember that as clearly as anything.
And I saw that number on Ed Sullivan.
You did?
Yeah. While I was still in Cincinnati, yeah.
I never knew
that was amazing. It was all like that.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was my first experience with him. Later on, when I was dancing on Como, they told all my stories. I mean, basically, it was family. And I think the thing was because Peter himself was a family man. We knew his wife, we knew his kids, and it was not like this choreographer walked in and he never, ever, if anything was going bad, never blamed one person. We've all worked with people who blamed the dancer. He never, ever did, and it was such a joy. He had the best orchestrators in the world that were dance orchestrators and went on to major Academy Awards, etc. The two things that I thought most successful about him was he drove a Mercedes, and eventually I drove a Mercedes. And the other thing that I thought was so cool was he had his own dance rehearsal studio above his garage. I never got that, but he had to do sometimes 6 numbers a week on the show. Not just one. He'd do an opening, and then for a couple of stars, and then we'd do a couple of, not just one number, but up to 6 numbers a week. And it's really difficult to come up with original stuff every single week. It was absolutely amazing. The two things that influenced my life was when I was assisting him on Hallelujah. He was leaving the show, and the new choreographer was coming in and said, I want you to stay on as my assistant. And I went to Peter, I said, Peter, what do I do? They've asked me to stay. He said, stay. And I kept up what they kept of his in the show as long as I could. And then the other time was on Sullivan, where I think Peter was contracted to do so many as a dancer. And then he would do other shows for stars. And one week they said, will you choreograph next week's show? Nobody wants to do it. They have a group that's rather difficult. And so I went to Peter and I said, they want me to do next week's show. And he said, of course, go ahead and do it. Well, the group turned out to be not too difficult, and I did all their numbers from then on. It was Diana Ross and the Supremes. And so he handed me all of those things every single time.
Generous.
Very generous, very generous. And it was frustrating sometimes. The other thing that was frustrating with the guys was we couldn't shake our bodies the way we could. They wouldn't let us. It was well known back then, you don't do that. So we had to cut down the hip stuff quite a bit and still do the feet and everything else.
But if you notice his costumes, they always are above the buns.
I was amazed just looking at that first clip tonight, how fast it was again. I mean, I've aged and I'm slowed down, but boy, we danced fast.
Very fast.
And you never shook your buns like he did it.
No, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
And now you said
But
what?
we all did say at a certain point, this is our version. No matter what he does, we stick to our version because you could never follow it. You just couldn't in a million years. Wonderful, wonderful man.
How tall was he?
Smaller than I am.
About my height, 5'8",
5'7", 5'7", 5'8", I'm not sure. But one of the clues to that, when he looked so tall on television, is we used the number 4 camera, which was a low camera, which shot up and elongated his body.
Right.
And we would do camera 1, 2, 3, and then all of a sudden we always had a section that went to camera 4 to make it look really
He
long.
didn't dance short.
No, not at all.
Now, later on, we're going to see a number called The Sophisticates
Right.
that you did.
Right.
Do you remember, it's the most unique thing you'll ever see. We're also going to see the moonwalk, right, soon?
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But what, did he give you images or thoughts about that?
You know, it was such an unusual number for us to do. It was not Fast and Furious. So it was all about style and things. And I think, I remember 2 of them. I heard that there were 3. I don't remember the third one. I think we did Ball in the Jack and something, African Waltz, not African Waltz, but something like that.
And it was by request that you kept doing these, right?
Yes, the first one was such a success, they said, you know, do more of that humorous kind of thing. Yeah.
He was great, and so many people, I will not mention them, famous choreographers did things and got all this adulation. I went, well, Peter did that, you know, like.
Oh, I'm sure he did
He
the
was so
moonwalk
creative,
before
especially with
anybody.
the humor and with the juxtaposition of like ballet against jazz and stuff like. I mean, he did all these great numbers, and then he did them way before anybody else had the idea.
He also had great extension.
Yeah.
My God, you know.
And I was noticing again tonight how his feet were like a piano player. They caress the floor. I've seen women's feet like that, you know, and I love that when they do that. And to watch him do that again, it was wonderful to see.
Did he ever mention penguins in the Sophisticates? Because
Not
it
that I
looks
remember.
very penguin-like.
Well, you know, the girls were so tied in that it kind of gave that impression anyway, I think.
I think Peter was the clothes horse. He loved to dress up, and he, you know, was always like to the nines, right? So sometimes we say, "Oh, Peter, what are we going to do next week?" And he'd go, "Well, we're all in red." Peter, what are we going to do? And then the pants are going to be striped. He described the whole outfit before he'd get to what it was.
Well, Mary Jane Houdina wrote something I'm going to read a little later, but she said that you guys gave him on Miss America pageant, you made up a shirt that said, "Don't worry about the steps, worry about the costume."
He did a ballet for, I think, the Philadelphia Ballet. And we said, "Peter, how'd it go? You know, what'd you do?" He said, "It's all in beige." Okay. You know, you just gotta love that.